8:30, and I'd like to call the March 12th Athabasca County Council meeting to order. First item of business is the approval of the agenda. The items listed that must be discussed are 2.1, all of item 4, that's 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, and 4.4. Items number 6.1 and 6.2. I'd like to add 7.5, and then item 8.2 and 11.1 and 11.2. Are there any other additions or deletions? Councillor Holland.
Thank you. I'd like to add 10.1 G for discussion.
So you want to add or delete?
Well, both.
Okay.
So there'll be a report for that. But there is a deletion, pages 131 to 134 are deleted due to that. Those minutes are not approved. They should, they'll be added, the approved minutes will be added at the next.
Okay, so to add 10.1 G, but to delete pages 131 to 134 from the agenda.
Yes, please.
Councillor Chanzik.
10.1 S and T, please.
10.1 S and T. S like Sam and T. Okay, Councillor Anderson, Gerlich, Cromwell, Councillor Minns.
Let's throw, what do we got here? 7.1, 7.2.
7.1 and 7.2. Okay. Any other additions or deletions? Seeing none, I'll go through the list. I have number 2, number 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 6.1, 6.2, 7.1, 7.2, 7.5. I'd like, sorry, 8.1A, 8.2, 10.1 G. With the notation that we want to delete pages 131 to 134 of your agenda. And then 10.1 S, 10.1 T, and item number 11.1, 11.2. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended? Councillor Cromwell has moved. Councillor Cromwell has moved the minutes as amended. Is there any further discussion? Or sorry, the agenda, pardon me. Move the agenda as amended. On the question of the adoption of the motion to approve the agenda as amended, all those in favor? And opposed? The motion is carried 8-0. The first item is the audit planning. That's for 10 o'clock. So none of the delegations we're ready for. So it would be in order to move to item number 6.1 on page 56 of your agenda. And is someone willing to move second reading of that bylaw? Councillor Chamzik. Councillor Chamzik has moved second reading of bylaw number 002-2024. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none on the question of the adoption of the motion to move second reading of bylaw 002-2024, all those in
Councillor Gerlich, through the chair, we did have a artifact from a previous bylaw. So when we built our bylaw, we built it off of another municipality. So on line number 2.3, where it says the very last 4 words bylaw of the county, it actually said bylaw of the Greenview previously. And that was County of Greenview was our template model for the bylaw. So we amended Greenview to county.
On the question of the adoption of the motion to approve second reading of bylaw 002-2024, all those in favor? Opposed? Second reading is adopted. The count is 8-0. Is there anyone willing to move third reading? Councillor Cromwell? Councillor Cromwell has moved third reading of bylaws 002-2024. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, on the question of the adoption of the motion to approve third reading of 002-2024, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 8-0 and third reading is adopted.
Would this be a good time to put a motion in regarding financial for this particular bylaw?
I think that it would make sense for that to come in as a separate agenda item so that everybody was prepared for it, but is there any, would that suit the table? That way, everybody has a chance to think about it before being sort of,
Right, so
Surprise.
did we just put in a notice of motion on this one for
or write something up, and
next time around?
I think that's,
Okay,
to me, that seems reasonable unless there's any objection.
okay, thank you.
We have, the next item of business is 003-2024. And this is on page 60 of your agenda. This is a bylaw to, amend fees for planning and development. Director Wilkinson, before we take on any motions, do you want to speak to it? Beyond what's written in your report?
Good morning. Yeah, so it just as my report says, we just had a few things to help with the ease of use and improve clarity. And administration are working on a overarching fee bylaw, but we just felt that we could make this amendment now. And then once that overarching bylaw comes down the pipe, then this one would be rescinded.
Is there anyone willing to move first reading of this bylaw? Councillor Cromwell has moved first reading of bylaw 003-2024. Discussion. I'd like, okay, no one, I'll start it. I'd like to suggest that or ask if it would make more sense for a bylaw like this that amends fees to have a future dated effective date. So looking at the bylaw, having it come into effect the date that third reading happens seems very abrupt. If somebody's in the process of doing something, I wonder, does it make more sense to say we're going to do it as of April 15th or April 30th or May 1st or pick a day? But maybe not. I don't know what's historically happened, and
These amendments don't really affect the everyday business, you know, I mean, they do, but we take fees daily. So whether the fee changes today or on the 15th of April, that's at council's discretion.
okay, so there's not somebody who was here yesterday and is going to come in tomorrow and go, well,
No, we take files daily and we process them. Usually the fee is kind of the last thing that we do. So I don't think that it would, like I said, I don't think it really affects our daily business. It's really, I guess, in council's hands, whether they think it's better today or the 1st of April or the 15th of April. It really
I'm
won't make
satisfied with that.
it
That's-
won't make a whole lot of difference to our staff and
Okay.
the function of this.
or to our ratepayers. Okay. Any further discussion? On the question of the adoption of the motion to approve first reading of bylaw 003-2024, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 8-0 and first reading is adopted. Typically, we again stretch these out over 2 meetings. We can do 2 today or we can do 2 next time. Council, do you have a direction? Councillor Holland, are you moving second reading? Councillor Holland has moved second reading of 003-2024. Is there any discussion on the matter? I'm suspecting not. On the question of the adoption of the motion to move second reading of bylaw 003-2024, all those in favor? Opposed? And the second reading is adopted. I know that we will not have unanimous consent for third reading, so I'm not going to ask. 7.1, Councillor Mims, you asked for this to be on the agenda. Is there a motion you'd like to make?
I'll make the recommended motion.
So
Yes.
Councillor Mims has moved to approve the updated policy 7202 airport fees as presented. Do you want to lead the discussion, Councillor Mims?
Yeah, I guess, I was just wondering when the last time the lease rates or the rental rates were looked at last time? 90 cents a square meter, is that okay, or should we be looking at raising that, or?
Through the chair to Councillor Mins, we do have recommendations coming with the full schedule of fees bylaw on what we suspect things should be. And again, we're going to get that to you in late spring for discussion to come into effect on January 1st, 2025.
Okay, and then the other thing is just, you needed to have that reworded for the, I guess, a contract company to come in and start selling avgas.
Yes, through the chair, this policy would dictate that you would set the price for an external company, which is not something most contractors would go with.
Right on. Okay.
So does that mean if we get an external contractor set up, you'd be back with amendments to facilitate that?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Min, does that satisfy your questions?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. On the question of the adoption of the motion to approve updated policy, to approve policy 7202 airport fees as presented, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 8-0 and the motion is adopted. Councilor Mins, you put 7.2 on the agenda. Did you want to make a motion?
No, I'll just talk about it first.
Is,
Well,
it's a surprise. This is new to us. Is council, is there any objection to not having a motion to discuss to begin with? Okay, seeing none, go ahead.
well, I guess I can make an amendment for.
Go ahead. What's on your mind?
Yeah, yes. I guess a couple questions I have on here. Great job on, I love the lines through it. The whole thing. I do like that very much. Page 80, on the, I think it's fees. Yeah. On the fees there, it's got additional camp unit, $15. And yet we also have a double stall at $50, 25 each. I'm just wondering, why don't we go just, if you want to put another unit in there, why don't we just go with $25? You camp in any other campground, like especially a provincial campground, and you want to put 2 units in there, you pay double. You pay for that extra unit. You don't get a break. And I don't know why we're under the fees there. We're given a break because you can put 2 units in this, right? Let's charge them double and be done with it. It's an additional unit should be $25. Or an unmanned site, additional unit should be $15. It's to me, that's, and we do the same thing on the seasonal ones. All of a sudden we get 2 units in a seasonal campground and we're only charging an extra $1,000. So we're doubling down on the people. Why don't we double down on the money? So that's what I'm proposing, is that we take the additional camping unit and just make it the same all the way across.
Director, do you want to respond to that? Councillor Holland, I see you and I'll come back.
Through the chair to Councillor Mins, as this has already been opened and we have already got seasonal pairs booked, I have no problem with council setting fees at any time, but I would make the recommendation that since we are literally in progress, that this would be applicable to the January 1st, 2025 schedule of fees bylaw.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. It's just come up to my mind all of a sudden, because I do lots of camping in the summer. We go to other camp places and that, and we want to put 2 units in that stall. You pay double. You pay for the next stall. It's like, we're charging the next person over that's got a double stall. Double. So if you put 2 units in there, and I like it with if it's a tent on an immediate family, like the kids are coming out and they want to stay in the tent, great, no charge. You know, that's understandable, but
So are 2 tents, 2 units, or is it?
So, and yeah, that would be fine, being that we're under the gun here with already doing the seasonal thing, but we could change the one for the could we not for the single units, like not the seasonal units, but the
Through the chair to Councillor Mins, we have started booking regular campground sites as of March 1st. So I can't speak to whether someone has, but if someone has, then you would be changing it mid-season open, so.
okay, well, I'm not gonna,
There'd be an advantage to booking early.
yeah. Yeah, I guess, no, I'm fine with that. If we can look at changing that for January, that'd be great. So do I move on here? A couple more questions here. So, page 83. Got a couple questions on, page 83. Number 3, guaranteed check-in. I don't really like guaranteed. I'd like to see that removed. I don't know if I've stayed at another camp place that actually guarantees that you're gonna get checked in at 4 o'clock. Check-ins from 4, checkouts at 2. And that's my thoughts. Remove guarantee.
Through the chair to Councillor Mins, I believe this means that your spot will be available at 4 o'clock. We are guaranteeing to the person who's coming in that it will be ready for them at 4.
Yeah, but what happens if all of a sudden a big wind comes through and knocks a tree down? That guarantee is gone.
True.
So remove guarantee and just say you can check in at 4.
And this is an administrative procedure, so at the end of the day, I'm sure that the director and the CAO will take advice and hear the thoughts, but it's probably not sort of in our lane to fiddle with, but I think it's providing advice on what we see and know.
As you can see, I read the policy.
You read the
The other one that I have is suspension guidelines, number 1, same page, number 1. Discretion goes from campground manager to parks foreman, then automatically to the CAO. There's 2 people in between there that are kind of missed out.
Through the chair to Councillor Mins, procedurally, everything would come from the CAO and then be delegated down. So the CAO would be listed as CAO or designate in a policy. In the case of this procedure, we're just letting the campground managers know that they have that authority and their direct supervisor is the parks foreman. So.
Okay. Yeah, because I just found it operations manager and the director left out in between CAO. Like I can see a confrontation coming on where all of a sudden the camp manager wants to get rid of somebody, then it goes to the parks foreman. And to me, it looks like right from parks foreman, they're phoning the CAO. And it's like, are we dumping this onto our CAO that it doesn't need to go that far right off the hop? It should just go to the next.
only because the process is a procedure that's authorized by the CAO.
Yeah,
Honestly, it's his problem.
yeah.
I mean, if the CAO wants to authorize a policy that makes him the be all end all, publish his phone number, call me for everything, not my problem.
Yeah,
And
no. As long as the CAO is okay with that. I don't know if the CAO has totally read all these policies.
again, that's up to him to do. Not my land.
Mr. Chairman, trust me, it would be delegated. So I have no problem with the wording,
Okay,
but I know that the director would deal with it.
okay, that's, yeah, no, other than that,
Do you have a motion you'd like to make, Council?
yeah, sure.
Approve?
With the amended for January, if we,
Or do you want to leave that so the director said they're going to bake that into the fees bylaw that they're working on?
okay, sure. So if you wanna,
Do you want to move the motion to approve the policy 7630 as presented?
Yeah.
Counselor Mins has made a motion to approve policy 7630 as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? Counselor Holland, you did have your hand up.
Just for clarity for more than anything, back to the page 80 for the county campground fee schedule. So when we're talking about the additional camping unit, as you mentioned, that includes both unmanaged campgrounds and managed campgrounds, like that covers both. I'm assuming. I just see that there's, they've got unmanaged campgrounds, managed campgrounds, but then we have additional camping unit. I'm wondering if it was meant to be for the unmanaged campground. Just curious.
Director?
Through the chair to Councillor Holland, the the additional camping unit applies overarching to all.
Thank you.
Counselor Gurlick?
Since our recreational department of this area is subsidized, is not a break even or whatever, are our fees and whatever in line with other jurisdictions? Like, are we a bargain center or?
Through the chair to Councillor Gerlach, your generosity is obvious.
Perhaps something we should be looking at as well when we look at the figures for next year?
We have that in mind, sir, yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
It seems like you can't go wrong by being close to the provincial rates to me, but I feel like we're a bit of a bargain too, and personally don't object to our residents getting a bit of a break in our campsites, but if they're, if we're servicing non-residents, we should be at market rates at least. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none. If you're ready for the question is on the adoption of the motion to approve policy 7630, county campground fee schedule as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? The count is 8-0 and the motion is adopted. (7.5). Is there anyone prepared to move the recommended motion? Councillor Wallach has moved to authorize Reeve, Deputy Reeve, or council member to attend the seniors emergency preparedness event and give opening remarks on behalf of the county. Discussion wise, I added that to the agenda just to ask the CAO, is this normal? Is this typical in your experience in counties that, especially at a county event, that we would need council's approval for the Reeve to say, welcome to our event? And to me, this seems like a waste of time.
Mr. Chairman, that is not usual. Normally, if we're holding a county event, or even if someone is invited to give remarks on behalf of the county, that's usually part of the Reeve's duties automatically, or if the Reeve's not available, Deputy Reeve. And if Deputy Reeve is not available, then the council member that has an association with that board or committee. So it's not normal to need a motion every time.
Further discussion, Councillor Chemzik?
I think it also gives that extra opportunity for extra advertising for events too, though, for having it placed in our agenda in advance. Just saying.
Other discussion? Seeing none on the question of the adoption of the motion to authorize Reeve, Deputy Reeve, or council member to attend the seniors emergency preparedness event and give opening remarks on behalf of the county. All those in favor? Opposed? Count is 8-0 and the motion is adopted. You don't have to be a senior, I hope, to attend. Intermunicipal collaboration framework. We are at item number 8.1. We received a letter from the minister asking for a survey to be completed. I added this to the agenda because I wanted to see if it would please council to direct the CAO to answer this survey, given that none of us were involved in the prior ICF negotiations. I'm not sure about the value we'd add. But it seems reasonable that, there's a response from Athabasca County. And looking for your thoughts. Councillor Anderson.
I make a motion to direct administration to respond to the survey on behalf of Athabasca County.
Councillor Anderson has made a motion to direct administration to respond to the survey on behalf of Athabasca County. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Mintz?
Do we need to discuss the questions or maybe the CAO discuss the questions with the Reeve regarding this or?
I don't. I personally don't know what value I like that I would add to this because we weren't part of that. Like, I'm comfortable with the experience of our management team speaking on behalf of the county from my. From my personal view.
Okay.
But if you would like to amend it to direct something more rigorous, I don't think this is a gigantic. Earth-shaking deal. It's just the minister's asked for some advice.
Okay, no, I'm fine with it. You betcha.
Any further discussion? On the question of the adoption of the motion to direct administration to respond on behalf of Athabasca County, is that how you worded it? All those in favor? Opposed? The count is 8-0 and the motion is adopted. We are 5 minutes from our first delegation. I would propose to you that we should take a 5-minute break and then be ready to start right at 10 o'clock. Unless there's objections, let's have a 5-minute recess. All right, I think it's 10 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock, we'll reconvene. We have joining us Mr. Jeff Alliston from Metrics. This is the pre-meeting in advance of the audit for our year-end financial statements. The discussion is going to take place in two portions. One of them is, of course, the open discussion, and then there'll be a brief closed session discussion with the auditor as well. Typically, Jeff, I know we've all met before, so maybe just in the interest of making it simple, I'll go around the table and introduce people. The ones you can't see with the backs to you, we have Director Whaley, we have Dill, who's Imtaz, there we go. CAO Beck, Recording Secretary, Ms. Blair, Communications Chief, Mr. Schenkelberg, Councillor Minns, Councillor Holland, Councillor Chamzik, Councillor Wallach, you know me, Brian Hall, we've got Councillor Anderson, Councillor Kapitanek is on her way and absent, then we've got Councillor Gerlich and Councillor Cromwell. If you can see them waving in the little screen.
You bet.
The floor is yours and we'll let you begin. Thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Am I able to? Oh, I can't share screen. Would I be able to share screen and pull up my presentation, or does everybody have it, I guess?
One sec, just figuring that out.
Okay.
I have mine on paper, so I'm not worried about it.
Okay, it should work now.
Oh, awesome. Perfect. Okay, here we go. That works. I don't know, does this work, or is that too
Yeah,
much?
we can
like,
see that.
Like, is that full on the screen, or that's
That was-
okay?
It's probably better the other way.
The other way? Okay, just thought I'd ask first. Whoops, there's wrong button there. Better. Okay, so it's good like this then.
That makes it the biggest, yeah.
Okay, perfect, awesome. Okay, well, thanks for having me here today to discuss our audit planning report. So in turn here, this report provide a brief summary. We'll talk about materiality in the context of a financial statement, what it means. I'll go over a bit of our plan scope. So areas of focus, concern, what kind of audit procedures we're looking to perform in those areas. And then in addition to that, go over our timeline and then additional appendices pertaining to the 2023 audit. So in turn, really the purpose of this report is to promote effective two-way communication between yourselves, the counselors, and us as the auditors. Services that we'll be providing to the county would do an audit of the county's financial statements. We also prepare the county's financial statements based on the information we obtain. We'll prepare and certify your financial information return, which gets sent to the provincial government. We'll perform specified audit procedures over the county's local authorities pension plan, which is due by June 30th, and then as well as an annual review of your FCSS program. When it comes to our audit fees here, they're in line with our estimated cost in proportion to our quote. However, this year we do have additional procedures where it pertains to new accounting adoption. So the county will be looking to adopt asset retirement obligations. They'll be looking to adjust their financial statement presentation, portfolio investments, and as well as financial instruments. So what you'll see this year, again, is you'll see the adoption of asset retirement obligations with work being done by the management team that will be assessing and auditing. And then as well as when it comes to financial statement presentation, you'll see obviously asset retirement obligation disclosed there, and as well as financial instruments where it comes to identifying risks associated with financial instruments within the county's financial statement. So this is probably one of the larger accounting adoptions since 2009 when tangible capital assets were adopted. So we have estimated just some fee ranges in there that we think we'll be able to keep in line with the additional work involved in this year in the adoption of these new standards. When it comes to engagement team, so myself, been the partner on this engagement last few years since we became your auditors. I've worked in the municipal sector for over 15 years. I also sit on the Emerging Issues and Professional Development Task Force for the Government Finance Officers Association, so which I believe your county is a part of. When it comes to manager, Nachi will be the manager on the file, so she's been working with me for about 5 years. She has in-depth knowledge of the county's accounts, as she's been involved in the engagement for the last 3 years as well. When it comes to responsibilities, just outline our responsibilities, which is to perform an audit in accordance with Canadian accepted auditing standards. So those standards require that we perform procedures in order to ensure, again, that the financial statements are free from material misstatements. It's management's responsibility for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements. And just to note that those charged with Governance Council is responsible for overseeing the county's financial reporting process. When it comes to materiality, so we use 4% of expenses as our benchmark. So roughly based on last year's, about 1.3 million is where we'll be determining the materiality of the set. From there, we set performance materiality to be 75% of planning materiality. So if we were to have additional or a number of adjustments that we were recommending to be made by management that exceeded our performance materiality, but were still below our planning materiality, we'd be advising management to hopefully think about recording some of these entries in order to get our materiality levels below a performance level. So although we do have a planning materiality, again, we kind of work at the performance level and giving ourselves a gap had there been additional errors that were potentially missed while performing our procedures. So again, also in turn, materiality really pertains to the users of the financial statement. So main users being yourselves as councillors, ratepayers, the government of Alberta, so organizations, individuals with vested interest in the financial performance of the county. So what we're saying is if your expenses were to increase or decrease by about $1 million, a user of the financial statement may have a different view or outlook on the financial performance or results of the county for the year. When it comes to the plan scope here, so here's where we outline the approach that we're going to take in specific matters and areas of focus. So I'll just touch on a few of the important ones. A real important one is management override of control. So here management's in a unique position to potentially perpetrate or manipulate the financial statement. So potentially adjusting accounts to conform to budget, adjusting accounts to increase your annual surplus. So there we use data analytic tools to identify journal entries that exhibit characteristics where potential manipulation could be being made by management. We then test those entries to ensure that they are valid operating or business entries, and then determine from there if there's any additional work after that. Revenue recognition is another main area here. We want to make sure revenue is being recognized once services have been rendered. So when you receive grant funding, there's restrictions attached to those. So we want to make sure that the restrictions and obligations have been met before the revenue is being recognized. So we're not just getting money and recognizing it as revenue. We got to make sure those performance obligations are being met. So there's a lot of work that gets involved or done in that. Other key area of focus here, a couple of pages here is tangible capital assets. So we want to make sure that your tangible capital assets are accurate. So again, you know, did you purchase tangible capital assets that were maybe accidentally expensed that needs to be recorded as capital assets? So you have assets that potentially are impaired, that no longer provide economic benefit, or do you have assets that have been recorded as assets but should actually be expensed? So we spend a lot of time in there looking at your amortization policy, recalculating amortization, testing additions, deletions in the year, as well as looking at repairs and maintenance accounts. Also, in turn with that, a lot of your grant funding for capital is associated in there. So we always want to ensure that the costs associated with that are then being funded either through your tax revenue base, your reserves, or through your government transfers. New area is the asset retirement obligation, so public sector 3280. So again, the risk there is that we're missing assets that should be in there. So we're definitely doing an assessment to make sure that management can provide completed results of potential asset retirement obligations that are within the county. We want to check the reasonableness of inputs and calculations to make sure that the estimates are based on the best information to date. So again, a new kind of area of focus here with the asset retirement obligation. Requests of those charged with governance, we just ask that, you let us know if you include any instances of actual or suspected or alleged fraud that you're in turn advising us. My contact information used to be in this report. I know it's in the audit findings report. That'll come later, but if you have to get a hold of me, you definitely do so. When it comes to timeline, we performed interim work previously in the fall. Our year-end work will start actually next week. From there, we're hoping to have drafts presented to council for the last weekend of April for approval. And then if there's any debrief that needs to happen after in May, we're definitely around to do that. When it comes to appendices, so just required communications. So just saying that we are independent of the county. Our engagement letter is in Appendix 2. When it comes to management representation, we'll get that signed at the end of the audit, which outlines that information was forthcoming to us. And then other communication of results is included in our audit findings report at the end, which in turn summarizes our audit plan. So we'll go over areas of focus there. Did we find any areas of weakness or concern that should be noted to council? We'll identify other areas such as your accounting practices, policies, estimates, financial statement disclosure, provide any other matters that we had noted during our audit. I'll skip through the engagement letter here, and then Appendix 3 here outlines new and revised accounting standards. So again, asset retirement obligations. So establishing recognition criteria for AROs and the subsequent impact of tangible capital assets, establishing measurement, initial and subsequent measurements, and establishing disclosure requirements. So as noted in our plan scope, asset retirement obligation will be a significant area of focus. So we'll be assessing the completeness through the work done by management. So again, it's any legal or environmental obligation that requires the county to decommission or complete of an asset once it's done its useful life. So a common one is asbestos. When it comes to buildings, you could potentially have lead in items that you have. You could potentially have other assets that the county has that are required to be decommissioned in a specific way. So those are the items that we're looking for. We're looking for costs associated with that so that they can be, again, put on the financial statements of the county. So it's not that these liabilities didn't exist before, but there was no requirement to record them within your financial statement. So knowing this information definitely will allow council to assess, well, hey, we have X amount of obligations still. We didn't know about these. How are we potentially going to fund these in the future? Do we have the money to fund these? So again, it's about bringing those forward so that decisions can be made on these items in the future. Foreign currency translation, so that's a new section as well, but there'll be nothing associated with the county's financial statements. Same with when it comes to the portfolio investments. When it comes to financial instruments, you'll see additional disclosure there when it comes to the financial instrument impact on the financial statements. So when it comes to investments, potentially any debt obligations, those type of items there. And then as well as financial statements changes where it comes to, there'll be new schedules. So there's a new schedule for remeasurement gain losses, which track change in fair market value of financial instruments without them having an impact on your statement of accumulated surplus until they're sold. So that's a new schedule being added. So in turn, there's also new additional accounting standards coming next year. So one for public-private partnerships, a new one for revenue recognition of providing additional disclosure requirements, and as well as any purchase of intangible assets. So definitely not as big of an impact next year as this year, as we've seen quite a few sections to be added. So that's kind of it for my audit planning report. I can definitely take any questions that council has at this time.
Colleagues, do you have any questions? Not yet. I guess I wrote a couple down, Jeff. On page 18, can you just clarify for us who's driving the adoption of these new standards? Like, where does that come from? Is that the
Well, technically, management's supposed to provide the, I guess the initial assessment, so the scope of the work done when it comes to asset return obligations, the assets that were identified, the estimates for there, and then we then audit those items for, are they in compliance with the handbook? Do they meet?
The fact that the standards are changing, so that's the public sector accounting.
Oh,
body
public
that's
sector
setting that
accounting,
up.
but yeah, so that's national, right? So this is all across Canada. Yeah, that's it.
And so then just in collateral to that, why would we not, you said these other ones are coming up next year and they're pretty minor, like PS 3400. Is there any reason why that wouldn't just be done this year and get, like, is there any disadvantage to being an early adopter?
No, you can elect to early adopt accounting standards that are in the pipeline. It's not, I wouldn't say it's maybe common practice. Usually they're kind of adopted the year that they're required to, but you could definitely early adopt if the county wanted to.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. Under inventory for consumption, it says we will vouch purchases of inventory items and recalculate the ending balances. Could you explain a little bit more about how that process works?
Yeah. So if you
Informer?
have, so if you have like on hand items like in public works, stuff like that, we usually get a listing of what makes up your inventory, like for consumption. And then from there, we then recalculate items based on, are you using the proper framework? So are you using average cost base or are you using first in, first out method? So making sure that the costs are correct for those, and as well as verifying the amounts on hand with the counts that are provided by the county staff to make sure that the inventory is complete. Also, if you have any like gravel on hand, we usually get assessments of that from the engineers to ensure that that amount is accurate based on what's been estimated or counted at year end for that as well.
Other questions? I mean, I guess I also wondered, how did, and you might have answered this last year, Jeff, and I apologize if I've forgotten, the 4% materiality threshold. How do we get to a 4% materiality threshold versus a 3.5% materiality threshold or 2%? Because like on a $30 million budget, $1 million seems like a lot of money to be.
Yeah, so we use, so we kind of use standard, I wouldn't say standard, but we usually are within about 3 to 4%. So we feel that if we have, fewer entries and we kind of have a history with the organization and the finance department's been, pretty stable. I know Nicole's been there for a bit now, and we kind of tend to have a 4%. We have used 3% in the past, or we'll use a lower performance, performance materiality level. So say 65% versus 75. So it kind of depends on our history and kind of what we're seeing. We will adjust those if we need to based on when we're performing our work, if we're noting a bunch of errors, but we feel that like 4% for the county based on the users right now would be a good sort of, I guess, benchmark to start with. So
Thank you.
Yep.
Again, any questions from council? No. We do have a item on the agenda 4.2 to go into closed session briefly. So this is probably the moment to do that. It would be in order to take a motion to enter closed session. Councillor Mins has moved. Is there any debate on that motion? Seeing none. The question of the option of the motion to go closed session, all those in favor? The motion is adopted 9-0. And this is, so administration will leave us for 2 minutes and